So this past school year, I was very involved in theater. If you follow me on any of my things, that shouldn't be a surprise to you. I am annoying. And throughout the year, we did 3 things, or at least I participated in 3 things. To clarify, there were other smaller performances. These were just the 3, big things that took a lot of planning and everything. In the fall, we did a play. We did Midsummer/Jersey. Think Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare, but set in, Jersey, New Jersey. I played Robert, better known as The Porch.
I, Robert, who will play The Porch.
That was fun. We did Districts, which is like a competition, not really competition, more of like you perform for judges at the district and they grade you. It's a very more professional level thing, but we did that. I was in a group number, which we got a superior for, and I also did a solo performance of Honor Bound from the Death Note musical, which I got an excellent for. Basically, the grading system from worst to best is poor, good, excellent, superior, I think. So we got up there. And then in the spring, we did Beauty and the Beast. Ew. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video, because quite a lot of things happened, and I just want to talk about it. Just for added bit of context before I jump into everything, I played Cogsworth, the angry British clockman.
I am Cogsworth, head of his household.
I also played a villager. Technically, my role in the script was shepherd, but a villager, which pretty much everybody except for the guy playing the beast, because his costume was so elaborate, was in that first opening number, either as a villager or as a character in the scene, like Gaston, LeFou, Belle. Pretty much everyone was in that scene, so even if you played a different character later on, like I played Cogsworth or my friend Landon played Lumiere, almost everybody was in that scene as a villager. So we're going to start off with that scene, and I'm going to talk about a few things that went awry. So first off, in that scene, there's a fountain towards the front of the stage, and it's a fountain, it shoots out water. I don't know exactly what happened. On opening night, it either exploded or just broke somehow and started gushing water all over the stage. I'll put a picture. It's not great. I felt so bad for the techies, because they just had to frantically try to clean it up because there was water all over the stage. That was messy. That happened first thing opening night. It was a bad omen. I don't know. And then on day 2, my friend Bailey, who was playing the bookseller, because she was playing the bookseller, she had this cart with books in it, and one of the wheels broke on night 2. I'll put a clip here if I can. Yeah, no, that was a mess. Orchestrating that whole scene was honestly a mess. There was one day in rehearsals where we just kept doing it over and over and over again, through the first couple lines of the song, just really grinding at it for 3 hours. That was a bad day. Also, this isn't really a mess up, but just in that scene, me and my friend Landon, who again plays Lumiere, so I was working with him a lot throughout the musical, made this bit where he was the hat seller, so he had this thing full of, hats. He had this pole and it had, hats, because he was selling hats. In my character, because I do this thing where I'll just, take somebody's item and run off with it, I'll always return it. It's just thing. If you do theater with me, you know full well what I'm talking about. So I did that. I took one of his hats and I run off stage, and he chases after me and pulls me by the ear off stage. That was fun. Skipping ahead a little bit, I want to talk about Be Our Guest, because that was a lot. The iconic song, we all know it.
Be our guest, be our guest, put our service to the test.
What happened with Be Our Guest? Why am I talking about Be Our Guest? First off, there were people, this technically could have gone the costumes bit later, but this more pertains to Be Our Guest. The plates. Oh, the plates. So, because, it's sentient flatware and everything, there were people in the ensemble playing plates. So there are these giant circular cutout things that the choreographer, I love the choreographer. I'm not gonna say her name, but just I love her. She's a great person. Anyways, she was also my English teacher. Love her. Literally like one of the sweetest teachers I've ever met. Anyway, she painted these like giant cutout things to look like plates. And on one of the dress rehearsals right before the show, this was the first time they were working with the plates. So the way they wore them was like with suspender straps, kind of like a backpack, but it was suspender straps, and instead of a bag, it was like a giant cutout. They all broke. Like all except for one of them, just they snapped. The suspender snapped on dress rehearsal. That was bad. I think they kept breaking throughout the show as well, but not nearly to the same extent because, fixes were made. I also had a line at the end where I was supposed to come out and like yell, but I was only shown what the timing for it was once because it wasn't in the script and it was different than the studio recording. There's a part towards the end where I'm supposed to go out and I'm Cogsworth, so I'm freaking out. I'm like, no, not the kick line, and I'm freaking out because Lemaire's orchestrated this whole thing and I don't like it. I was shown the timing for it one time. It was like at the end of a really long rehearsal, so I didn't retain that. So on every show night, I winged it. I don't think anyone noticed, but I would just panic and run on stage and do it because I'm like, it's towards the end of the song. I think one time they were already in the middle of doing the kick line, and then I'm going out there and be like, no, don't do it, don't do it. Like they're about to do it, but they're already doing it. Mess. There was also a tango segment of Lumiere and Babette, the feather duster. So those two obviously were working really hard on it over and over and over again because it's like this big elaborate dance piece. I was also involved in it. Not dancing. If you know me, I can't dance. I'm a man of a few talents, but dancing is not one of them. But towards the end of it, they're like walking, whatever, and Cogsworth goes on stage and he's like, no, you need to stop this. This is ridiculous. What are you doing? Just like mad because this is, again, he's like, don't make a big elaborate thing out of dinner, and then Lumiere makes a big elaborate thing out of dinner. So he's freaking out, and then Ava, who played Babette, like jumps onto me, and then I like shove her off, and I'm like, no, no, no. That was a piece to work out. She fell a few times while we were practicing it. We all got hurt practicing that tango. It was a dangerous time, but it had to be done. Line mess ups. I just want to vent real quick about some things I screwed up. There's nothing too horrendous. I was actually surprised that I was able to remember my lines because like one of the ongoing struggles throughout all of the shows I've done is having a hard time remembering lines. I think it was a little easier this time around because I've actually done this show before. When I was like 8, I did the junior version of Beauty and the Beast, and I played like ensemble. I was the baker at the beginning, and then I was also a salt shaker during Be Our Guest. I'll put a clip from that show here. So it was a little easier because I could kind of remember back of hearing the person who was playing Cogsworth that time doing it. But I had a lot of lines. I had like 120 something lines, if I remember correctly. It was a lot. So I'm surprised I didn't mess up more. I don't think I got most of my lines like perfect word for word, but there's 2 specific things that come to mind. And they're both during this big tour scene where I'm showing Belle around the castle, and I'm like being pompous and British, and I'm like showing her around the castle and giving her a tour, basically just showing off how much I know because I'm big brain.
I'm sure you know everything there is to know about this castle. Well, actually I do.
And these were both during that, because that was the biggest stretch of just me talking in the show. It's basically just talking, off stage for a few seconds, talking, off stage for a few seconds, and then more talking. Like, it's cut up into 3 sections, but they're all, like, back-to-back, and only separated by, like, short little intervals of the Beast being an edgelord. So the first one is I'm talking about this painting that's like on the ceiling. We didn't have a painting on the ceiling, but it's in the script. He's like, if I may draw your attention to the hand-painted ceilings, and then there's a word there. I think in the script it said complete. I'm not sure. I could never remember it, so I just replaced it with bedazzled. Bedazzled.
May I draw your attention to the hand-painted ceilings, bedazzled with cherubs frolicking in the light amongst the nymphs and synagogues.
That is not a word. That is not a word in the script. The director never got mad at me for that, which I was surprised, because he's very particular about a lot of things. He didn't comment on it, so either he didn't notice or he just didn't care. And then on closing night, I stumbled over a line during the second part because the audience reacted for longer than they had the other two nights to a joke, and it freaked me out because I had been working nonstop for like a week, so I was tired. So my brain just kind of short-circuited because I'm like, this is going on a lot longer than it's supposed to. And then I kind of just like stumbled over my line and left.
Right. Okay. May I draw your attention to the flying buckets above the aviary?
Not my proudest moment, I must say. Human again. If you're in a show and you did that number, you probably just had a miniature heart attack hearing me say those words. It was a song number, and oh god, was it. I didn't even mention, our mics kept breaking all 3 nights. Like, our microphones for the stage so people could hear us, they kept breaking. Not everyone was mic'd, obviously, because it's a high school theater budget. Not every single person's gonna be mic'd, but like, you know, most of the lead roles were. Mine, I think I was the only one who, like, it didn't break. Or no, I think on, like, the last scene in opening night, it broke, but I was already, like, shouting, so no one really noticed. But yeah, no, people's mics kept breaking. And on closing night, the wardrobe, her mic, Alexis, her mic broke. It broke, and I felt so bad for her, because she has an amazing voice. She has an amazing voice, but her mic broke during her bit on Human Again on closing night, so the audience couldn't really hear her, and that's just sad, because she has such a good voice. For one, none of us really knew the song, like the lyrics to the song, because it's a very weird, it's very repetitive. Like, the melody is pretty much identical throughout the whole thing, but it's very wordy. It has a lot of words. Like, towards the end, we started to sort of get our act together, but there's still several parts where you could hear everyone just kind of be like, what do we say? But the choreography, that's the main point of contention. It's like a word, I don't know. That was the main trouble spot. There's this big choreographed bit towards the end, and oh, Jesus Christ. For one, I said this earlier, I can't dance. So, like, in all the recordings, it was better on closing night, because I didn't mention, because this is more in costumes, but for the first 2 nights, I had this, like, clock hood over my face, and I couldn't see in my peripheral vision. On closing night, I made the executive decision to just put it around my neck, because A, it looks better like that, in my opinion, and also I couldn't see or hear or do anything with it. Like, you can't. So, on closing night, it was a little bit better, but on nights 1 and 2, any recordings, I don't think there are recordings from opening night, but at least from night 2, there's so many bits where you can see me, like, fully turning my body to look at Ava, who is next to me, to see what we were doing choreography-wise, because my brain just, I don't have a choreography brain. It was a little more subtle on night 3, because I could just kind of, like, glance at her, but, you know. So, I was doing that. Everyone else was having trouble. There was a whole waltzing section. Me and Morgan, who played Mrs. Potts, we did a waltz together. So now, to annoy her, I'll randomly say, is that my waltzing partner? Human Again was a mess. There's also a part at the end where everyone's supposed to do a turn. I never did the turn, because just didn't compute in my brain that I was supposed to be turning, and then by the time it was too late, so I would just, like, awkwardly stand there as everyone else took a spin. Yeah, Human Again was bad. That was a bad number. Now, to the fun parts, which is improv. There's 2 improv bits that I want to talk about specifically, but overall, just improv. Obviously, in any show, you're going to need to improv a little bit, because sometimes things happen. Doesn't matter if it's community theater, if it's high school theater, or if it's Broadway. Sometimes things happen, and you need to improv around them. It was a cool thing going to districts, was seeing all the one-acts and seeing how the actors from other schools would improv their way out of situations. So like for one of the one acts, they had a prop door, and if you've ever worked in theater, you know that stage doors, they never work. So the door got stuck, as they do, and the whole setup was they were in like a cabin in the woods, and this guy was trying to come in, and they were like, yeah, you really need to pull on it, this cabin's really old. Like, that's clever, they worked around it. Or like there was this other one, it was called like the Night Witches or something, that like the big theater school in the county did, but they had this thing, they're basically like fighting Nazis. It was based off of these Air Force women from World War II. But at one point, one of them's putting on a boot and she can't get it on, and the other girl who's still in the scene is like, yeah, just take your time. It's not like we need to go bomb the Nazis or anything. Like, that's clever. So seeing stuff like that, you know, if you do theater, things are gonna go wrong, you need to do improv. So obviously everybody in the show had to do a little bit of improv, either because they forgot a line or because things happened. Me and Landon had to do so much improv.
Are we gonna improv? Let's improv right now. Are we gonna improv?
I don't know, you're bad at everything, and you know this.
Oh?
Yes, we are.
Because it just happened to where we kept being caught in scenes that would have long costume changes from other people that would go on for a long time. And I mean, it's not like we can really do anything with that time, because we can't just like finish the scene without them, so it would either lead to us standing around awkwardly or doing what we did end up doing, which was to just create funny haha scenes. The first one I want to talk about is during the song Something There. In the movie, it's the one scene where it's like during winter and they're getting to know each other. And there's a time where we're talking to the Beast, me and Landon, and we're talking to him, whatever, haha, we're doing this whole scene with him. And then pretty much immediately after that scene, Bella's supposed to come down from the top area in like a fancy dress or something. She's supposed to come out with like a new pink dress. But she's changing out of her previous costume into a new dress. It's going to take a bit. So that led to a lot of dead air. So we just did a whole improv scene.
Oh no, there we go. Let's be something special. Something sparks the interest. Something.
Sorry, again. Am I just not going to be privy to whatever you're talking about?
Wait.
I think Rachel, who played Chip, she also got involved because she was just also in the scene, just like in her little teacup, just sitting there. And it went on for quite a while. On day 2, the second night of the show, out of nowhere, she looks up at me.
What was your favorite part of the show?
Chip is saying that Cogsworth is a failure.
Just calls me a failure to my face. And that wasn't, even in the times we would run that, she hadn't done that before. It was so random, and it came out of nowhere, and it caught me off guard. So I'm just standing there looking at her, and my immediate reaction is, pardon? But yeah, no, that was very random. And after the show, she was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I said that. And I'm just like, okay. The other improv scene was on the tower, and it's honestly a very short scene. It's like right before the iconic ballroom scene where they do the whole dance and, you know, Mrs. Potts is all beauty and whatever, you know. There's a scene right before it where me and Landon are up with the Beast, and we're like helping him get ready. And during the first dress rehearsal where we did this scene, he was off stage getting dressed in his jacket, and it took an obscenely long amount of time. I'm talking like 5 to 10 minutes. So me and Landon, we just kept going back and forth doing like, I don't even remember what we were saying. We were just improving. The few people in the wings who did catch what we were doing found it hilarious. Everyone else was panicking, trying to get him into the costume. But it went on for like an obscenely long time, and he eventually came up, and we're like, finally. I remember another dress rehearsal, like the one right the day before the show. I didn't have my clock costume. We'll get to that. And at one point, he's like, man, we really do need to teach him better time management skills. This is taking forever. And I'm like, yeah, there's like no clocks around here apparently. Like, where's a clock? Can't he read a clock? And he's like, well, you're a clock. And then I just looked down at I was wearing my human outfit, so I was still wearing something, but like It wasn't the clock. There was no clock on me. And I look down, I look up at him, and in the most exasperated voice I could manage, I just go, "Where on my baldy do you see a timepiece?" That was fun. I go first or second night. One of the nights we did it pretty much as normal as we could. He came up with a jacket, like halfway on him, and we just helped him get it on the rest of the way, and we did the scene. The second night, he did the quick change off stage, but it didn't last that long. Closing night. Oh, closing night. Good cloak situation where we had to fix his cloak and it wouldn't go on. God. Yeah, so, we go up there. He didn't tell us he was going to do this. We go up there and we look at the chair. There's a chair up there during that scene. And we just see the jacket laid over the chair. And so me and Landon kind of look at each other like, what the fuck? And he comes up, not wearing the jacket at all, obviously. So we decide we have to put it on him. But here's the thing. Landon didn't have hands because he had the candlestick, so he couldn't use his hands. So it was solely up to me and him, the beast, person playing the beast, to put this jacket on him. And it's even more complicated by his costume. Underneath he had like these shoulder pads to make him look bigger, because the guy playing the beast was really tiny. And he also had these like big thick rubber gloves to look like claws. And he wasn't really giving me much help with it. He was just kind of standing there doing a scene. Landon couldn't help, so it was pretty much up to me to put this jacket on him. I am bad at things that involve using my hands. That's gonna come across weird in a video, whatever. So I'm putting the jacket on him, trying to put it on him, but my hands aren't great. They don't really work. So I'm putting it on him. Halfway through, I realize I'm putting it on him backwards. So I take it off, and I'm whispering to him. I'm trying to get his attention. And I'm like, it's backwards. It's backwards. He was paying attention to the scene, because he was doing the scene with me and Landon. But I'm panicking back there, because I realize I did it wrong, and we're reaching towards the end of our lines. And then we reach the end of the actual scene. We're out of lines. There was no more lines in the scene. And Landon looks over, and I could see it in his face. He kind of processed what was happening, and the jacket wasn't on, like, at all. And he just goes, "Do you need help with that, master?" So then it led to this whole ordeal of us frantically trying to get this jacket onto him. I really wish somebody would have got it on camera. Out of all the footage I have from closing night, no one really recorded the whole thing. There's like a 2-second clip I'll put here. The audience, eventually, not everyone in the audience obviously immediately caught on to something that's wrong, because they're not in the cast, they haven't memorized the script, they don't really know what's supposed to be happening. But pretty quickly, everyone in the audience kind of clued in that something wasn't right. The audience is laughing their asses off. I'm laughing my ass off. I can't keep character. It's a ridiculous situation. I tried. During the actual scene, I'm like, what do? And then so I'm just back there, like, laughing hysterically, and like occasionally chipping into this conversation while we're all frantically trying to put this jacket on him. Again, Landon doesn't have hands. We didn't get the jacket on him. At one point, we're like, okay, this is going on too long. Landon, who's the only one still kind of knowing what to do, at one point, it's just like, it's fine, and then he takes me and him off stage. So then the guy playing Beast is just there with his jacket that's not on him. And as he's walking down the thing, he's frantically trying to get it on. The audience is, at this point, super, like, invested in this mess with the jacket. And when he finally gets it on, which thank God he did, because he needed that costume to be on correctly for the big iconic ballroom scene, because it's his iconic blue vest thing. The entire audience erupted in cheers. Costumes. I'm not going to go into the full extent of the costume situation. I'm just going to talk about my situation. I mentioned earlier, I didn't have my clock costume until opening night. I didn't get to run a dress rehearsal with this big, bulky clock costume that I can't see, and occasionally I'm up on high platforms. Thank God I didn't fall. I had been extensively fitted to a part that was almost uncomfy, like an uncomfy level of measurements to fit me, and everybody who had to have special costumes made did that. So I don't know why the pants were like several sizes too big on me. Midway through opening night, they just like snapped or something, because they had fit fine at the beginning, but at one point there was like the elastic or something in them and just snapped. So it was like several sizes too large for me. So the third day, I just put a giant safety pin through it, whatever. There was also this clock handle I had to get on the back of my clock outfit, and it had to be detachable because he doesn't have it at the beginning of the show, and there's a scene where it appears and he notices it.
What is that?
It appears to be a lightning handle of some sort.
Get it off of me.
It was made with Velcro, but the Velcro didn't work, so I had to safety pin it to the costume. But there's this really quick change at the end of the show, where it's like after the mob scene, whatever, we get off stage, and there's all that transformation stuff. So we really don't have a whole lot of time to get into our human costumes. So pretty much as soon as we were off stage of the whole, like, fighting on stage of the villager scene, we would race to the backstage, frantically, like, take off our costumes. It was easier for some people, like, for example, Chip, it's just this head that's attached to the cart, I think. So she could just, like, wear most of her costume underneath and no one would know because she was in a cart that you couldn't see. So, like, that was easy for her. She was very helpful during the transformation, kind of going around and helping people. For other people, it wasn't as easy. Specifically me and Alexis, who, like I said earlier, played the wardrobe, because we had these big, bulky costumes. She's very tiny. So for the wardrobe, she had this, like, football. She literally had, like, a football gear thing to make herself look bigger, and she also had this giant box that she was wearing that she had to change out of, and into this different elaborate costume, which was her dress. I had to take off the clock. That's easy enough. But then, on top of that, I had to put on a vest, put on this thing around my neck. I can't tie things, so I had to go get help for that, because, again, my hands don't really work. I had to have this over vest. I had to do all this stuff. On night 2, which was the day where, like, I was having particularly issues with the pants because I hadn't found a big safety pin, so I just had a bunch of tiny safety pins, and they kept falling off throughout the show. So in very many clips, you can see me kind of, like, pulling on my costume to make sure my pants don't fall down. It was ridiculous. On night 2, I didn't really have any help. I'm frantically doing it. I also had these, like, cuff things in my sleeve, and I can sort of hear, because there's, like, intercoms and stuff, I can sort of hear we're getting to the point where I'm supposed to be on stage. My costume's still not fully on, but I have no time, so I race out the back. Here's an important thing to know. I was wearing ROTC shoes, which I'm not in ROTC, I just didn't have stage shoes, so I was wearing these really uncomfy, horrible ROTC shoes. Would not recommend. And all the smart people in the cast put this stuff, it's called, like, rosin, on the bottom of their shoes to keep them from slipping. I am a dumbass, and I hadn't done that on night 2. It wasn't really an issue until I'm racing backstage across this slippery tile floor. I mentioned earlier Ava had fallen. One of those times was on the slippery tile floor because she hadn't rosined her shoes during that rehearsal. Racing backstage, there's a hoop skirt on the ground, just a random hoop skirt that no one had moved. So I'm coming up to where the stage is. There's a big thing blocking the back of the stage. I'm going to go through the side door. And I trip on this hoop skirt. And also, like, I was already kind of slipping the whole time because, again, I didn't rosin my shoes because I'm a dumbass. So I slip on this hoop skirt. There's several people there backstage watching me, like, run through the back of the stage. There's, like, my friend Christina and, like, a few techies and a few ensemble people just waiting backstage. And they're all watching this big spectacle. According to my friend Christina, when I fell and tripped on the hoop skirt, it looked like when in a cartoon, when, like, a character slips on a banana peel. Like, I just went, whoop, and I fell. On my ass, I was in so much pain. But there was no time, so everyone's, like, freaking out. They're like, are you okay? And I don't respond. I just get up and I book it, stumbling onto stage. On the clip from night 2, I look so disheveled. the choreographer literally afterwards, she was like, "Are you okay? You looked really like freaked out when you got onto stage." I'm like, "Yeah, I fell." And my costume wasn't on all the way, so you could see me like fixing the cuffs of my sleeve on stage and just like frazzled. So I was already changed. I was much more careful. I had the safety pin, so I didn't have to worry about safety pinning a bunch of shit on my costume. And I'm like carefully walking through to make sure I don't fall. And I'm looking to make sure there's not a hoop skirt. And all of the people, because it was the same people, obviously, from a previous night who were there were just like politely clapping that I didn't fall. It was ridiculous. Overall, how was the show? Obviously, it wasn't perfect. There were people in the cast I had issues with, which I'm not even gonna go into. Most of the cast was fine, for the record. It was just like a few people. There were rehearsals where everyone was stressed. Rehearsals where we didn't really get much done or not get what we planned to get done. There's a lot of issues with tech things going wrong. Shout out to Landon. He did so much tech for that musical. He's not a techie. He's not a techie. He's an actor. He just did a lot for him. I love that man. So it was not perfect. There were definitely lots of issues, but overall it was a really fun experience. I got to become closer with a lot of people who maybe weren't in the play or whatever, or were in the play, but I hadn't really gotten a chance during the play to kind of get close with them. It was a really good time overall. Even taking in all of the horrible prop malfunctions, horrible issues, the obscene amount of improv we had to do, all that stuff, even taking in the issues with a few people in the cast that I did have issues with, even taking in the choreography days that sucked because I can't dance, even taking in the singing days that sucked because reasons. It was still a really fun time. It was a stressful time a lot of the time, but I would happily do it again. I hope I can do the musical next year. Go audition for it, obviously. I've done many shows, many musicals, many shows. Prior to this, I think it was like 12 or something. Like, this was like my 12th show or something ridiculous like that. This is the closest I'd ever been with a cast, was the shows I've done at this school. And I think that's pretty cool. That's all I want to say. Alright, have a nice day.